The heat is still on.
Massive game.
New Zealand to win.
Great kick.
It's been a terrible year for little Wallabies.
You're missing an injection of life.
Stupid guys think they're so good.
Hello and welcome to RuggaMatrix International, episode 241. I'm your host, Jiro Sen, and this fella is Ben Kimber. G'day, Benny.
Jiro, how are you, buddy?
Very good, mate. Good to see you. You well?
I'm very well, mate. Had a good week.
All right, okay. So it is action all stations. It is rugby, about to get on to the Lions series with the preliminary games. But Ben, what is your strike issue of the week?
Lots going on, mate. International rugby all around the globe. Some good standard of footy. Lots to watch and enjoy. The number one topic continues to be the Lions tour, and it should be. It's heating up, mate. And last week we talked about were they flops or not. I think that question's been very much put to bed. Now, I think the strike issue of the week is, has this Lions team finally shown its hand? They took on a Crusaders team packed full of All Blacks, and I think the scoreline 15-3 to the Lions, I think that didn't really show the actual extent of the Lions' dominance of that game. 15-3, I said.
Now, Ben, that score doesn't sound right to me.
That wasn't a setup at all, was it? Mate, one of the things that I found really interesting is there was a lot of talk, and in the NZ press I read a lot of stories and a lot of reaction, but no one really talked about the fact that the Lions got snipped an extra 3 points. Yeah. Farrell kicked a goal that went, to me, right through between the posts. Should have been 15-3, should have been a slightly easier finish to the game for the Lions with that gap past a converted try. But in the end, a dominant Lions, I thought, display. In the end, they had 57% possession, 58% territory. In the first half, the broadcasters were flashing up numbers in the 70s that the Lions were controlling the ball so well. And they really did start to show what I think this Lions team has intended to do, and that is a crushingly oppressive defence, a very physical game, and a kicking game that they chase hard. Really, the line speed and the accurate kicking meant that the Crusaders never got a breath. They never could turn around and they never could settle themselves into the game the way they could. And a Crusaders team that is very used to having front foot ball all of a sudden did not.
Yeah, very true. But maybe some issues in the scrum for the Lions. But the lack of tries in the game, you could understand it in the way the game was played. But obviously, I think there are issues for the Lions can't play like that heading into the Test series, and Warren Gatland knows it. I'm actually really impressed watching Warren Gatland after the press conferences because he's pretty honest about how the players go. He gets some really softball questions after the match, but he's quite prepared to be a little bit critical of his players, and he was critical, Ben, of them in their own red zone where they were defending, and they were probably playing a bit too much rugby.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they probably should have been booting the ball the other end rather than... So the Crusaders were clearly kicking the ball to the Lions, waiting for a mistake, and I think Warren Gatland was freaking out that they were going to make a mistake, and he wasn't happy with the performance of his wingers. That'll be fixed up later on. I think they'll obviously get a bit of a rocket about being more confident in the air. And I think once that happens, the Lions will be a better force. But, you know, it was an interesting game. He badly needed the win just psychologically. But I think in terms of a polished performance, it was far from it, but it's getting there.
I thought it was a massive step in the right direction and a massive step closer to what the Test side will look to put out there. I think Gatland would have been very pleased, with a win. And what's really interesting too is the off-field game, the mind games and the discussions between the coaches and the various people involved. You can see it start to build, and the pressure, particularly on Gatland, with the English press there, who started to give him a bit of a kicking, not just the English press, sorry, the UK and Irish press, starting to give him a bit of a kicking. And then he's now got them swung right back in behind, and they're feeling good about the tour again. But to take out of that game specifically, Connor Murray, fantastic. What a player.
No surprise.
He was instrumental in Ireland beating the All Blacks in Chicago. Yeah. His kicking game was on the money every time. Owen Farrell stepped up. Even Johnny Sexton, who was looking like struggling a bit early in the tour, he came on and went well. But the back row, Sean O'Brien, Peter O'Mahony, Toby Faletau, Alan Wynne-Jones in the second row, Vunipola around the park, and George North. Actually, one of the commentators had a great line. I think they said, the Crusaders must feel like they're up at the pole because North is everywhere. But those guys all really looking like, if not cementing their position in the halves in particular, Connor Murray and Owen Farrell, I think the back row is going to be a significantly difficult task a good task for Gatland to try and jam some talent into.
Yeah, but what about the fly halves? Now, that was interesting late in the game, how he had to use both of them, and I thought, interesting way to go.
Yeah. Well, originally, we kind of thought it might be that. I thought it might be Sexton 10, Farrell 12. Teo is, looking the goods at the moment.
Yeah.
And it was really shaping up to be Murray, Farrell, Teo. But now Sexton, looking good. I'd suspect he'll start up on the bench.
I just noticed that
Gatland likes that hard running number 12.
Yeah, but Gatland made a point to talk about that afterwards as well. So it was really interesting. I think also there's been a bit of talk about. Gatland said that believes that the Kiwis have been scrummaging illegally. Geez, as Australians, we're used to hearing that. There's no doubt about that. But obviously, the mind games have started. The French referees, some influence is trying to be exerted. What did you think of the French referee? He made a lot of, he blew the whistle a fair bit, but at times he had to. What did you think?
Look, I think there was obviously a discussion to be had around the scrum there. The Crusaders, to me, looked to be unfairly pinged a couple of times when they looked to be dominant, but it's this interpretation around the gap when they're going to be packing into the scrum that clearly they were on different pages. Now, last week we talked briefly around, I suggested that what we would see that would be different for this Lions team, and the teams that start to match up to them, is in the test the refereeing's going to be different. We talked about those Super Rugby sides like I think the Highlanders and the Hurricanes, who probably get away with a bit more in a fast-paced game that I think gets pulled up in test matches. This was an example of refereeing to the letter of the law. Now, if you ask the Lions coaches and journalists what they think it was wonderful refereeing and that the Crusaders were illegally scrummaging. If you ask the Kiwis, well, except for Mark Hammett, the Highlanders forwards coach, who came out and said he saw no problems, but I think he's probably just getting himself set up for the game. But if you ask them, they thought they were unfairly done by. For me, the layman not seeing the intricacies of the scrum up close, it looked to me like the Crusaders won the hit and were on top a couple of times and did get unlucky.
So the hit thing, and it's all about the preloading of the hit. So the black players hold the front row back. So the Lions are prepared for all of this. If you look at the history, and I've talked about this before in the show with Ewan McKenzie in the past about scrummaging play, how the All Blacks back in the day introduced the hit in scrummaging because initially it's just designed to come together and then engage in truly scrum. And so the All Blacks would always win the hit. So there's always an eagerness to bring the hit back if you've got big bodies to do that. So it's something that you may draw the attention of the officials down the track about changing rules, etc. But the hit in the scrum is always something that the All Blacks would like to win. It's clear because they introduced it, and it was spectacular to watch. But we'll wait and see in this space about how things go in relation to how the referee's going to react in the first test coming up. But there's a fair bit of rugby to be played for the Lions yet. Yeah,
and well, look, and Hansen called it. He said generally his team, the All Blacks, are going to have to find the right way to adjust because Reynolds, the referee, isn't taking a test, but two French referees are. So you're likely to see interpretations from north of the Northern Hemisphere. You're likely to see. If they're going to ping things a bit more stringently than perhaps the super sides are used to, there's going to have to be some adjustment there. But I suppose the good news for the All Blacks there is they're complete. The front row that will take the field in the first test, you would expect, were the guys out there for the Crusaders. So they've had some first up experience on getting that moving.
All right. So I think overall it was a good result for the Lions because, it wasn't the most scintillating rugby in terms of expansive play, but the conditions were difficult. And, it was a real test for the best Super Rugby team in the competition up against the Lions as they start to get their rhythm together. Look, the Lions deserve credit that they're actually starting to improve. You'd be really asking questions if they were going backwards, but they're actually going in the right direction, just building that combination together. So I think by the time we get to the first test, we're going to see a pretty good contest.
I think so, mate, and I still think they've got a really tough schedule, right? With the amount of games, Highlanders followed by Maori, and then another game early in the week.
I still think it's good
before the test. Well, it can and it can't be if they lose a couple of guys, and they lost. To their credit, they lost Davies and Hogg both to concussion before the half-hour mark in the game on Saturday, and still managed to keep it together in the back line where Sexton came on and played well. But they've got to get through it. The question now will be, I think will be really interesting, is are the All Blacks going to be slightly underdone compared to this battle-hardened Lions team, which I think is what you're suggesting?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to catch up to a couple of questions on the feed tonight. Thanks for joining us live, everyone. It's always a pleasure to have your company. So Victory to the Lions, it was 12,
12-3.
not 15.
All right, I'll give you 12-3.
Was it 3 or 6?
3.
I'm just adding numbers to it.
You are. Couple of key things to call out in that game, as I said. Richie Mo'unga and Matt Todd probably showed why they didn't make the All Blacks squad. I think they had reasonable games. For Wallabies fans like us, we'll talk about the Wallabies Fiji again a bit later, but one thing I really noticed, even though, is Richie's kicking for the line and Farrell's kicking for the line. A couple of guys who really took control of the game with line kicks. So get a penalty and then find the line 5 metres out, and that can really switch a game up. You go and watch the Wallabies Fiji, and our old mate Foley, as I've said to you before, kicking not his strength, he was still missing the line and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it was a game in which that ability to kick was paramount. We saw it from both sides.
Yeah.
But Conor Murray's box kicking, Farrell's vision into space, and then the chase. These Lions guys were pumped up. They were hard. The defence came up flat and hard all the time, and the Crusaders had no time to think.
Gatlin was very happy with the line kicking. Actually, that was really important for him to get territory in the conditions that were absolutely difficult for a Test side. But I think that's the really important thing. The kicking game, as you said, absolutely vital, and it definitely got the Lions out of trouble.
Yeah. Question there I can see from Pete Walters. Do you think you'll see the Lions play their Test side against the Maori? I think yes. I think that's got to be the way they're building up. They've got 41 players, so they're going to play, at least 5 of their guys have got to play their midweek games. 5 of the 23 each week will have to play the Maori and will have to play the Test match. So they're going to have to make sure they keep their 18 intact. So I think you'll see their top 18, at least of their 23, take the field against the Maori, and probably the starting side will be picked, I think, with a view to locking it in ahead of the first Test. And then a few of those guys will have to run around in the midweek game. But the first Test, I think, absolutely, you'll see a step up from the team that played the Crusaders to a sharper look for what the Test will be against the Maori. Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. That'll be close to the Test team for the British and Irish Lions. So interesting stuff. A bit of gamesmanship and chat afterwards about the scrum. You wouldn't have it any other way. But another cold night there in Christchurch for that Test match, or the quality of a Test match in the end. It
was a cracking game.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Like just the intensity I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. So there you go. The Lions with a good victory against the Crusaders.
And if you didn't watch the game, and I talked about the difficulty I think that Gatlin will now have to pick his team. I think he's got a logjam of talent heading for the second row and the back row. I think in the front row, I think Coles will probably get a chance this weekend to try and take that starting spot away from Ty Furlong, who did get touched up a little bit. Coles, I think, did better when he came on. So I think the front row, there's still a bit of room of movement in there. They're looking strong at hooker. Second row, Alan Wynne-Jones and someone. I think Alan Wynne-Jones has to start, and I think he might start captain, and there's been some talk in the last couple of days around that. Sam Warburton hasn't had a lot of rugby coming back from his injury. He will play against the Highlanders, but whether he's also the right guy to get the balance of this team right, when you've got a guy like Sean O'Brien who chased Richie Mo'unga down after Mo'unga got through and just rounded him up and stopped a runaway try to a 5'8", you would think an open-sider shouldn't have caught him. But there's going to be that logjam of talent for sure in that back row. And I think Warburton on form isn't the guy. I think he's more of a 6.5 like a Rob Shaw than an open side like a Sean O'Brien. So I think there's some decisions to make for Gatlin there in that back row and second row, but the back line probably firming up a little bit more.
All right, okay. So victory to the Lions, as we said, and can't wait to see that Highlanders game. And if you had a chance, I shared on our Facebook page the Highlanders doing a nice little skit heading into it based on Braveheart. It was quite funny, actually. So if you get a chance, check it out. Highlanders having some fun about taking on the Lions. All right, so that is the strike issue of the week, the Lions. So I think, to answer your question, what was your question again?
Oh, did they show their hand?
Yeah, I think they did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they did.
I think we saw the blueprint.
Yeah, because there's not much else they can do. They just need to now improve on their game plan.
That's right.
All right, so the All Blacks v Samoa is your next cab off the rank.
I did want to talk about that because rolling out of that Crusaders game and looking at the way that front row went, a few other guys, I think it's really interesting now that we've seen that the Lions are going to get they're going to get it together, thankfully, right? We didn't want to see a tour that fell apart where they were an embarrassment. So we've seen now the shape of what can be a very competitive Lions side. They're going to have a couple of games to get there. They're going to have the Māori on the weekend, and that you would expect them to come in good shape for Test 1 and ready to play. Now, the question is, how will the All Blacks fare now that they've got into camp together and moving through? They've had some reasonable news on the injury front. They've got a couple of guys who are looking okay. Still no Reid or Cruden, Coles or Squires, but Kano back, Barrett looking okay, and a few other guys. I think Ryan Crotty, not good at the moment, but he's probably going to be okay. So how that comes together for the All Blacks is going to be very interesting. Israel Dagg didn't have a fantastic second half against the Lions there. Ben Smith still got some concussion. So Steve Hansen has some work to do to try to pick his fully fit and firing 15 for that first Test match. I think I saw, interestingly too, Beauden Barrett was interviewed with his brothers ahead of the Test match. And Barrett was asked clearly about that line speed, and he said, it's like nothing we haven't faced before. But a point that he did make, and I think that he brought this up, was what we can't do, Beauden said, what we can't do is panic that we have a limited amount of preparation. We actually have plenty of time. So that says to me that is a factor in their heads, that there is a limited amount of preparation, particularly when you line them up against what the Lions are going to have coming in. So it'll be very, very, very interesting to see how Hansen takes on Samoa this week, and who he thinks he's going to pull in there. Not controversial, but areas to consider will be the centres. For me, it's SBW and ALB, the two triple letters. Crotty, of course, being injured. But a few other areas too he'll want to play with, I'm sure. Back row, back three.
Yeah, I don't think you can do wrong. What about the Lions, though, facing the Highlanders? I think the conditions should be pretty good in that stadium.
Oh, absolutely. It's a dry track. Yeah. They'll shut the roof, so it won't be... the Crusaders game, I think the slippery nature of it certainly helped out the way the Lions wanted to play and putting that pressure on. They were, Dagg in particular dropped 2 or 3 in that second half. Slippery ball, George North running at you. Whereas, the Highlanders will be looking to keep it nice and dry, play it fast. And to be frank, the Lions team running out for that game are not a patch on the side that played the Crusaders, and they can't be. They can't be.
No. All right. Very good. Let's move on to the Wallabies, hey, mate?
Sure.
And I think, Benny, this was an interesting game because the Wallabies are hiding to nothing because it didn't matter what they did. They were going to play Fiji, who they were expected to beat, and they did all right, actually. There was some nice stuff in there. One of the things that impressed me was seeing Israel Folau continue his good form, and surprise, surprise, after we've been harping on it for ages about kicking to him his first try over the top on the wing when he's playing fullback, but doesn't matter. He got it on the right-hand side. That's how I want to see him play.
Mate, finally. We had the great Brett Papworth in here, a few months back now, and he just said that, why on earth would you not kick to Folau all day? Yep. He's an ex-AFL player now. He can get up there. He can get up there above just about anyone. So if you get the kick right, he's going to come down with it. Now, it got fumbled, and he put it down, but nonetheless, and I saw a quote from Folau after that. He said, we've been working on those kicks and I back each one if it's Bernard or Carmichael Hunt or Quade Cooper coming on to execute. It's something I want to utilise and something I can use a bit more. If we can find those opportunities in the game, then we will use them. And so, clearly it's been declared now it's going to be a tactic, and thank God for that. Finally, they're going to start thinking about mixing it up a bit more and trying not just to run it hard all the time, which is where we said is Checker limited tactically. Yeah. Mix it up with those kicks, the right kick at the right time. Not to kill that tactic, but to get it across to Folau for sure.
I think it's Aidan asking the question about Hunt. Happy with that. So we were critical last week of the selection of Carmichael Hunt at 12. I've got to say he actually did really well. But it is one game. It was against Fiji to start the season, and there were a couple of times when he got sort of physically dominated. So there's a long way to go yet. But it wasn't a bad start. Yeah,
look, I didn't think he was physically dominated. I thought he did a very good job. To your point...
No, I think I bumped off a couple of times. I just think it... there's a long way to go anyway.
Yeah, look, if you're going to try him out, Fiji's a game you can do that in clearly. Fiji were quite an unstructured side, so you didn't get as many of those plays where they might have targeted people. They were more about moving the ball around. And so I think it was more comfortable for Hunt to play in 12. I thought he did put a few good hits on there. What was interesting was the way he played first receiver a couple of times. So he came in and took the first touch, set the play up, handled it through, and that enabled Foley to play a bit wider a couple of times. I thought Hunt, you can't fault him as a footballer who gives a damn. He gets up and gets in and has a crack. and I think that'd be in whichever position he plays.
Absolutely.
Now,
don't forget he did the job in Europe as well.
Yeah,
So,
but whether that means he's a number 12 who can face the South Africans, the All Blacks, or the English, yet to be seen.
Yeah.
But you had to say he did
that's
well.
what I mean, mate. It's a heavy channel. He's going to come under fire, and you know, you see the toll it takes on guys like Matt Giteau in the past. It is a tough channel.
Yeah.
So he will come up against some even bigger boys down the track when we talk about the Springboks a bit later.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a bad start. Bernard Foley, look, you know,
A mixed bag, mate.
yeah, but he's still a number 1 fly half.
He has to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
what concerns me is not that someone else should be picked, it's that he doesn't have the all-round game, as you know. As I say, anyway.
Well, I think he's got an all-round enough game, and so you know, and he still does some pretty sharp stuff. And I thought they did a lot of good stuff on the run when Israel Folau scored his second try, and that was him sort of pulling himself up a bit and then making the diagonal towards the try line.
Well, that was.
I thought that was a really good try.
It was nice. It was nice.
Yeah.
A couple of different touches across the line,
Yeah.
and then according to the commentators, and I probably agreed, Folau looked like he was supposed to be the dummy runner, but it was changed up mid move and popped it to him.
He ended up getting the ball,
and away he went. I thought that the really noticeable thing that I think Checker actually said in his halftime interview, or just after halftime, what he was looking for, I thought we saw. He said he was looking for...
Don't tell me there was a halftime interview that actually had something into it.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
But he basically said he was looking for work rate in this first game, and I think there was a few guys out there that absolutely showed that. I thought Adam Coleman had an enormous game in the second row, both in the line out, around the park, huge grunt, huge engine, so excellent to see. Potential captain of the future, I think we've said before. Higginbotham went well. Hunt also high work rate. Hits the deck, gets up, goes again, makes another tackle. And Michael Hooper is Mr. Work Rate. Not quite as over the ball as we've seen him in the past. You know, sometimes I think the Waratahs and the Wallabies have suffered because Hooper doesn't get on the ball as much because he does play a very wide game and around. But he still gets around the park and probably didn't have as dominant a performance as he has for the Wallabies because a few other guys lifted and were doing as much work as he normally does. Though nice noticing, though, that when Hardwick came off the bench, his very first touch of the ball was securing a penalty when he was trying to steal the ball off the opposition. So I thought that was a great move for him.
Crowd disappointing.
Absolutely disappointing, 13,000.
13,000 at the Rebels' home ground.
No, I was going to raise that as Checker Watch, actually. It was going to be my Checker Watch comment of the week,
yeah.
but we can do it now.
I actually didn't mind his comment. Let's go. Checker Watch, up early.
Checker Watch. Now, he actually said... commenting on the poor crowd of 13,583. Now, it was Amy Park, the Rebels' home ground down in Melbourne, so it only doesn't hold a heap.
No,
but it was still looked
Melbourne
half
Storm
empty.
plays out of there as well.
Yeah, but it was still looked half empty, which was disappointing. Checker said, it was disappointing. That's what happens when you get into off-field dramas. On-field gets hurt. Now, he's probably right, but for the Wallabies coach to be saying that, it felt a little bit like I'm removing myself from head office.
It's pretty convenient.
Yeah,
it's pretty
very convenient. They had a poor year last year.
Don't worry about the 8 losses last year.
That's right.
Wouldn't have had nothing to do with it.
The Wallabies have been a bit on the nose, and it's partly to do with the way they play and their losses. So to point to head office and the off-field dramas for the poor crowd, look, I thought that was a bit much. I think they've got to look closer to home and say, we've got to be winning, we've got to be playing entertaining rugby. We're the ones who bring the crowds here, and I don't think it's going to be him pointing at head office. Though it's interesting, he in the last few weeks, he also said a couple of weeks back, he mentioned maybe all 5 teams would stay in Australia, which was in direct opposition to what was coming out of head office. So potentially what we're seeing is Checker very much aligning himself with the player base and the team and distancing himself from head office.
There's no doubt about that. He's the players' coach. But yeah, it's convenient. That's not the reason. I don't know if the Rebels fans are going to take it out of the Wallabies. That's just un-Australian. But look, good results, some good efforts. A couple of questions about Genia. How did you think he went?
Genia went okay for his first game back on soil, and he's got a good pass, had a new stylish haircut. But look, Genia is our best half, and I think he had a nice loose warm-up, if you will, loosener.
I still think you're a bit hard on Foley. I think Foley can produce some pretty good stuff for us. And you know what? He's the man. So they have to make sure that the game plan is pretty solid around him. Now, whether Hunt continues there, I'm not quite sure, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, look, I am hard on Foley, but that's because
we'll have to defend a lot better when it comes to the
but this is
Sanzar Nations.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked also about the way they hide him in defence sometimes. Same with Quade, they stick him over in the hooker channel for line out, etc. But the reason I'm hard on Foley is because this Wallabies team hasn't been able to mix it well enough at the top level. And part of that reason for me is they haven't been driven around the park with options in the right way. Like when you see the Farrells of the world and the Bowden Barretts of the world who can absolutely play heads-up rugby and kick for the line, kick for the space, chip kick, crossfield kick, play the ball, run straight, mix up their options. We don't have a kicking game option that enables you to mix it up enough.
Yep.
So Checkers declared in the past Wallabies' tactics are the running game. It's almost like they have to be the running game because that is the strength of our 5'8". So I like Foley as a player. I just don't think he's got a rounded enough game to make the Wallabies manage a game well enough against the big teams.
Well, that means they have to find other kickers elsewhere in the team to do the job.
And maybe that's why Kyle Godwin's been picked, as we said. Young bloke with a big left foot.
Darren also made a good point on the boards about Michael Hooper playing too loose. That's during the game, not after it. That's for Greg Parker, who's also joined. He's very loose after the game. What do you think about that? Because he does enjoy playing in the loose, but sometimes when you get so excited by that, in the end it could drive you too much to then play loose more than the tight stuff.
Yeah, and that gets down to the balance of a team as well, right? It's interesting because Hooper and Higginbotham are both guys who previously have played very wide-ranging games. So if you play like that, two guys who are running wide, you aren't getting that control of the breakdown. And the Australians didn't turn over a lot of ball. They weren't hard on the ball at all. Hooper, I think, has a natural game which is quite wide. He's got speed. You know, he could play 12 at a pinch if you have to. So he's a guy that likes to chime in out wide and move around a fair bit. But he's not a hard, bustling number 7 like a Pocock, who's in there punching away at the rucks all the time.
See, the big thing is when you go to 10, and Darren again with a tackling issue with Foley, is that when we had Stephen Larkham play for Australia, we had a fantastic tackling fly half. And England had that too in Johnny Wilkinson. And when you've got that guy who's around midfield area, who's tackling, knocking blokes off, it takes enormous pressure off the team, doesn't it? And it forces the opposition to tactically come up with something better. And so and when Australia has to make all these arrangements in defensive chess moves in the back, it really stuffs us around as a dynamic team to move from defence and attack, vice versa.
That's right.
So I understand Checkers' problems, absolutely, but we can't make excuses, and we've just got to make, okay, these are our players. Let's put them together in the right mix and just keep going. Move and forge and get some smart moves.
But if we have discussed this before too. But if Foley can't defend in that channel, you're going to have to keep switching and moving around. And in a game where transition from attack to defence or defence to attack is so important, we've got a team which is in disarray when the chips are down, when something is happening, when all of a sudden there's been a change and the team has to adapt. The players aren't in the positions where they should be, very clear on the way they want to take it on.
All right, so just looking, what else have you got on that?
I just want to say a couple of points in there. I saw Cam Shepherd and others talk about Jake Gordon, and that's spot on as well. I'm a big fan of Jake Gordon. I thought Phipps being selected in the squad was wrong. Gordon should have been in there, and I'd love to see him get a run for the Wallabies.
All right, Cam Shepherd. He knows what he's talking about.
He absolutely
My partner
does.
in crime on 7-2's coverage of club rugby at the weekend down at Centennial Park. Very cold.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
It was pitch black at the end of the game. So, great stuff. Of course, the Wallabies, the program isn't over before we head into the resumption of Super Rugby and then, of course, the championship later in the year. But how do you think they're placed now heading into the tougher games? Well, one of the tougher games against Scotland.
Well, mate, we saw...
I like that where you shared too from the warm-up game.
So I posted a rugby pass video onto RuggaMatrix of a Scottish try that I thought was excellent. Scotland 34, Italy 13, game in Singapore I think it was on the way over here.
They've lost, what, 3 players to the line squad?
Yeah, 3 is all they've lost, so they've got a few guys in there. And the try I posted was the hooker, I think, Ryan Ford scoring, but off some beautiful handling from Finn Russell, the 5'8", and it was a nice sharp try. Scotland... in that one move, looked sharper than the Wallabies did against Fiji, if I can put it that way. I think this is a cracking match, Wallabies Scotland this weekend. I'll be out there taking my boys out for their first Wallabies game. But I think right now the Wallabies team have had a loosener against Fiji. Fiji were very unstructured. The Wallabies got to play it a fair bit the way they wanted to. If not for Nakarawa, who was massive in the Fijian second row, the Wallabies would have had it more their own way. But they've really got to try now to bring a bit more of the game that we want to see them play here, a bit more structure, some straight running and mixing it up. And I think the Scottish are going to be a good battle. The Scottish will be fired up, and it looks like they want to play a game which is going to take it to the Wallabies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think Australia won't be taking them for granted, and they shouldn't because of their recent record. But yeah, they're in good nick and they're well coached, and they will bring a game plan and they want to knock off Australia. There's no doubt about that.
Footy. I love the afternoon footy, mate.
Yeah,
the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Yeah. I think it's fantastic. More power to
Just
it.
wish it didn't clash with the shoot shield, mate.
Well, this is true.
You know, it needs to be sorted out. Yeah, okay. So other internationals. Do you want to go to South Africa and France?
Yes, I'd love to go to both, but let's talk about the game instead.
Yeah, so I stayed up and watched this on the early hours of Sunday morning, and I was doing something else, and I thought, oh no, the Test match is on, and it was pretty interesting. You know, wasn't that great the first half. It was a tight affair against France. France missing a few players, and the Springboks sort of coming together late. But I think in the second half, what happened, Ben, is that the Springboks got played into form by the French team, and I was really impressed with some of the stuff that South Africa put together. I was really happy to see South Africa put some points on the board and build some confidence for the team that's been so derided over recent times, and it was good to see the crowd get behind them. So I thought there was some really outstanding play, chanced their arm, and some big hits too. It must have been one of the biggest games of World Rugby in physical size. The two teams were massive, just smashing into each other. France again tried some good stuff, but they did another thing that really annoys me, Ben, and I've said this on particular shows, is the game management at the breakdown, just too loose laying the ball back. So when they wait for a play, it might be delayed a bit, the ball's flopping around all over the place and they lose it quite quickly. So it's just that basic thing. I can't understand why they can't get that right. But interesting, they pulled away in the second half, South Africa, and a really, really good win. A couple of individuals you want to pull out of that game, but I thought it was a good start for South Africa, and I think they'll be pretty happy to get some points on the board.
Yeah, look, I only saw the highlights of this one, and one guy who stood out clearly, Malcolm Marx. Now, a couple of shows back, I talked about how much I liked to see Eben Etzebeth fired up and in there as a dominating box second rower in the likes of Backies both. And I copped a bit of stick. People would tell me, oh, he's just a thug. You know, and maybe it is the case that I like these caricatures of the way you think about teams. But when I think about South Africa, there's a few of those types I think about, and one of them is that second row, but the other is the hookers. And Malcolm Marx looked like the guy that you want to see in a box number 2 jersey. He was just swatting Frenchman left and right, bustling up the field. He looks monstrous,
yeah, it was
and he had a massive game. Now,
can I just say, Andrew Thompson, I was by myself doing something else, but it's not what you think. All right, okay.
So I thought that was fantastic to see. Now, reading some of the South African press out of there, a lot of support for what Alistair Coetzee did this time, in that they feel when the Lions were the dominant team last year, he ignored the dominant form players and picked from across all the teams. Here he went to the strength. The Lions are again the team in form. So the guys who stood out: Elton Jantjies, Ross Cronje, Malcolm Marx, and Franco Mostert, and really awesome to see that nucleus of Lions players taking some of that super strength into the box arena and playing hard. I think, and I want to watch this Malcolm Marx because I do love to see a bustling Bok hooker.
If you get a chance, have a look at the extended highlights you can. But Cronje was really impressive at the scrum base, and he was a delight to watch. But you know, the physical. What I noticed about this team was they got stuck in, and they had to pull off some just desperate defence because the French guys came to play. They'll be better over the coming weeks, the French, and when they get bolstered. But I think that was a really good game by South Africa. Really good to see, and I think it's going to be a far improved championship, rugby championship this year. And New Zealand will have, in the wake of the series about to go off. New Zealand, I don't know what I said, but series about to go off. In the wake of the Lions series, it's going to be a pretty good rugby championship.
Yeah. Your mate Eddie continued his winning ways.
Oh, yep.
So
yes,
what a massive win that is.
Go Beaver.
and last minute try. I can see Justin Bennett just said it was the international of the year so far. Again, I've only seen highlights. Sounds like I have to sit down and watch that one in full. But a last minute try to Solomona to win the game 38-34. Now, that is an exceptional outcome for England with so many players off on Lions tour. Eddie Jones would have been ripping into these young blokes, telling them this is their chance to stake their claim for the future, to, you know, while some of the big names were away, step up. They've stepped up, and not only just stepped up, they've won in the last minute. That's a really formative win for a young team, probably, you know, who are expected to be up against it, you know, away from home, depths of Argentina. The Argies would have been fired up, and he gets a result out of his young team. That's massive for Eddie.
Yeah, absolutely. What about that clip going and doing the rounds of the scrum?
I don't think I saw it.
No, I'll share it out. The scrum that...
oh, yes, I did see you like that on Facebook.
Yes, I sent to Benny Darwin, so check it out when you can. Yeah, so really good first week of internationals, yeah?
Yeah, mate, it'll look exceptional, and really looking forward to the next week of them. Though it also mentioning Ireland 55, USA 19, so the USA team got a few points on the Irish there as well.
All right, don't forget to check out RuggaMatrix America with Alex Goff and the team, talking all things rugby in the States.
They should get Stabby on, actually, shouldn't they?
Yeah, Mark Stabina, yes, absolutely. Good fella. All right, Benny, you've done Checker Watch. Anything else in the news around the traps?
Look, we did want to just offer our condolences to the Warringah Rugby Club. Sad and tragic news this week. 25-year-old Lachlan Ward was playing 5th grade for the Rats against Gordon and passed away. His brother Sam plays 1st grade, and just, you know, our thoughts with the Rats. Horrible news.
Tragedy. I found out after the game we were calling actually on Saturday between East and Southern Districts, and it just stunned everyone in the rugby community. And our thoughts go out to the family and everyone involved with Warringah. Wonderful club, and you just don't want to see that
terrible
happen.
News.
Yeah, terrible news. But we're all with the family and the club.
Yep. Moving on, one other thing in the news that I spotted this week that was worth talking about is we've talked about Laurie Fisher and how we hope that he'd come back and get involved in Australian rugby.
What's
so
doing there?
He's back in Canberra, and he's been linked to, one of the reports I read, linked him to 4 out of the 5 Super Rugby clubs are sniffing around him, trying to get him on board. And as we said, he's the kind of guy who doesn't seem to have a massive ego. And by all accounts, he's not looking for a head coach job. He's looking to just get in there and look where he can add some value. And that's the sort of guy you want involved. One of Australia's best forwards coaches back on the scene. And, you know, we need him.
Oh, great stuff, isn't it? You know, it's really important. Now, you mentioned Rugby Pass before.
I did.
Yeah, so we're sort of chatting to these guys, and we're hoping to spread the word through Rugby Pass. And in fact, this show from now on will be through the Rugby Pass network, which is massive in Asia, Benny, and
other parts of the world,
where you need access. And I actually think about signing up, because I've got a league pass as well. So getting access to games outside of places that have rights in certain areas is difficult. But Rugby Pass makes it really easy. So we're happy to be chatting to those fellas and looking forward to some great news down the track with Rugby Pass.
And so if you're watching this through Rugby Pass, welcome aboard. This is a show where we talk about all the issues. We like to keep it straight down the middle, as unbiased as we possibly can be, even though we are a couple of Wallabies fans. But it's all about the viewers as well. We love comments, we love feedback. We always read them and reply. So let us know what you think of the show, and give us your thoughts on whatever we talk about.
Obviously we are Wallabies fans, but I think we're the game fans of the game first. And
what's our unofficial motto? Respect the game.
Yeah, respect the game. So I think we're well placed to be an unbiased situation. As a journalist, I was never sort of barracking for one team either. I prefer to be straight down the line, and you've got to show respect to New Zealand, of course, as being the far away the leader. And having been in the management team, if you didn't show respect to the opposition when it came to in the dressing sheds afterwards, then you were going to be booted out of the fraternity quite quickly if you didn't pull your head in.
Well, there you go. Patrick Durkin uses Rugby Pass when he travels every June, July and August.
Patrick.
Nice, Patrick.
All right, so Rugby Pass and RuggaMatrix will be joining forces. So we'll be taking over the world together. So thanks for joining us, Richard and Fred. Richard and Fred, thanks for getting in contact with RuggaMatrix. All right, so that is it. We've done Checker Watch. Nothing else to do, Checker. How's his hair looking?
Thin.
Yeah. There's crazy Island Devon going on there. There's no doubt about that. I spoke to Brendan Cannon too today.
Yeah?
Yeah, so he's pretty busy at the moment, but we're looking forward.
We've got to get the Cannon shot back, mate.
Yeah, so Canno, it's difficult for him to get down to Sydney, but we have, I think, made a commitment in about a month or so to get him down here
Awesome.
to be on the show. We'll have other guests too. Cam Shepherd said he's going to come on the show, and Cut Loose, and we're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. Mate, I just want to shout out to a few viewer comments before we close for the night.
All right, go ahead.
Absolute best commenter's name was on YouTube, DJ Sexual Chocolate. Thanks for the comment, mate. That was fantastic. Lincoln Fruin, who ripped into me with a nice long post.
Wow.
But
So
it was all fair. It was all
about
good
your
chat.
pronunciation,
It was
was
all
it?
good chat. Well, actually, to be honest, most of our viewer comments this week were people ripping into me for suggesting that SBW's try should not have been awarded last week.
Oh, you got hammered over
I got
that.
kicked a
admit,
few
I did
times.
actually see it, so I couldn't.
We had
I'm driving this show here.
A couple of them got a bit personal too. It was nice.
Ah, I see.
David Weddy or Wed for talking about Damien McKenzie. Big post on that. A lot of talk in New Zealand on Damien McKenzie being unlucky for Geordie Barrett coming in, and that's quite an interesting call there. Damien McKenzie, I think, unlucky. Geordie Barrett, quite lucky, but we'll see how that goes. Robin Newstead, who was ripping in saying the Lions were still early. He's an ex-SAFA living in Canada, and he was spot on. And Dwight Ashford, who did quite a great breakdown of the Lions Crusaders game. So thank you guys for your comments. And as I always say, please let us know what you think. If you've got stuff that we haven't seen, let us know about it. And importantly, if you're a member of any big Facebook groups out there, share it out so we get some more people in chatting rugby.
Yeah, absolutely, love it. And it got pretty heated at times there, but Ben jumps in there to. So I'm doing all the technical work, and Ben dives in on the chat most times. But if something fires me up, I'll go on there and have a bit of a spray on YouTube in particular. But I think the thing about us is that it's fair enough to have a shot, but it's all got to be done in the right spirit. This is about respect. And we respect everyone's opinion on the posts, on the boards, and hopefully it goes.
I'll answer everything unless it's just abuse. Then there's no point.
Oh yeah. If you're being an absolute idiot, then there's no point in talking to you. But we don't find that pretty much at all. So your comments are fantastic. Keep them coming. I'll be a couple more weeks away, technically sorting out the live stream to YouTube. When that happens, we'll have messages going everywhere. But when it does, it'll be pretty cool. Going up to the internets, doing it live. All right, mate. Thanks for doing that. There's plenty to get through.
Thumbs up if you're still watching, guys.
All right, please. As we say every week, thumbs ups are great, but the shares are the really important thing. The more people that get to watch our show, the more chances we have to monetize in the background and be here every week regularly, and to make sure that we improve the program as well and get guests on the show. So please share us as much as you like, especially if you're involved in Rugby Pass as well. Great to have those guys involved in the program. But you're going to the test match next week.
I'll be there, yep.
There won't be club rugby next week, but there will be club rugby the week after in Sydney on 7-2. And I'll be involved with that with Cam Shepherd, who says he's excited on the boards there about getting on the show. Cam, good to see you.
Cool.
He's asking about playing game vision. Yeah, we can't really do that at this point, Cam. We had to pull a few shows, not necessarily because we were in the wrong before, but I couldn't be bothered having the battle with YouTube because I when the show's done, we throw this up to so many different streams. It's not funny. And don't forget, if you want the highest quality, then you should be tuning into the HD stream on iTunes. That is the #1 video download you can get, where the others are being uploaded, then redistributed from the compression back end of YouTube and Facebook. All right, you all done?
All done.
No other shout-outs?
No other shout-outs. But we stay after and have a chat on the live stream.
Right, okay. So you can join us on the live show straight after this. But that is it for RuggaMatrix International, episode 241. Hope you enjoyed the show. And as I say every week, enjoy your rugby. The heat is still on.
Massive game.
New Zealand to win.
Great kick.
It's been a terrible year for the Wallabies.
You're missing an injection of life.
Stupid guys think they're so good.